Hello, my name is Nick Guinn, and I'm an intellectual property attorney here in San Antonio, Texas. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about one of my favorite subjects, trade dress. What it is, how to protect it, and how to enforce it. Trade dress, much like trademarks, is a form of intellectual property law dedicated to brands and source identifiers. Trade dress, which is a subset of trademarks, specifically applies to product packaging and design and even building design. Now, for purposes of this discussion, I'll also loop in some other non-traditional forms of trademarks like color, scent, and sounds. So what are some examples of trade dress? Well, if I were to hand you a set of batteries, some of which were black and copper and some of which were black and silver, you wouldn't have to read the labels to know that I handed you some Duracell and some Energizer batteries. If I handed you a piece of chocolate wrapped in a silver aluminum foil with a tissue extending and it was a round cone shape, you wouldn't have to read the tissue or the bag that they came from to know that I just handed you some Hershey's Kisses. These are trade dress. As for some of those other non-traditional marks, if you heard the ding, ding, ding on TV, you would know that was the NBC chimes without me having to tell you that. Or if you opened up a tube of Play-Doh and smelled it, you would know it was Play-Doh, not one of its competitors. And if you were at the hardware store and saw some pink insulation, you would associate that with Pink Panther by Owens Corning. Like names and logos, these forms of trade dress and non-traditional marks are source indicators. You associate them with a single brand. And so why should you protect them? Well, like names and logos that you invest a lot of time and energy and other resources into, you want to make sure that you're protecting your trade dress. Because if you don't, you can lose your rights. So how do you protect the trade dress? Well, there's three really important things. Make sure that you use the trade dress. Get it out there. Make sure consumers know it, appreciate it, and associate it with you. 2, make sure that you're asserting your rights and you're enforcing those rights against competitors that may try to use your trade dress. Because failure to police your rights can result in you losing those rights. And 3rd, you can register your trade dress with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. That is a little bit harder or more difficult than it sounds. So it's important to consider the pros and cons when registering your trade dress. What I mean by that is this. When you file a trademark application for a name or logo, often, not always, but often, it's assumed that the name is inherently distinctive. And that's a box that needs to be checked to get it past the examiner. Trade dress, however, is often considered not inherently distinctive. And so you have to show proof that it has acquired secondary meaning over time. That is, proof that the consuming public associates it with you and no one else. That means that you may have to show consumer survey evidence. You may have to show the extent that you have advertised the trade dress, how much you've advertised, and that the advertisements are specific to the trade dress, not your brand generally. That's no easy feat. So why is this important in terms of pros and cons? Well, you can imagine that if you were enforcing your trade dress rights against a third-party infringer, and the Trademark Office had recently rejected your application, the infringer might feel empowered when they look through public records and see that the examiner rejected your trade dress. The thought being, well, if the Trademark Office didn't believe this was entitled to protection, why should I? So I encourage you to visit with a trademark attorney to consider your pros and cons and other options when considering whether or not to file an application for trade dress. How do you enforce your rights? Well, make sure that you're monitoring what's going on in the marketplace and that you're taking steps, whether that's sending cease and desist letters or pursuing litigation against infringers. Because failure to enforce, failure to police your trade dress rights can result in you losing those rights. Finally, what are the primary takeaways? Make sure that you are advertising your trade dress early and often, and that you're advertising your trade dress specifically, not just your brand generally. Another option that you can consider is that as you develop trade dress, you might file a design patent application for that design so that you have exclusive rights to it for 15 years. And at the end of those 15 years, if you've promoted and used the trade dress exclusively, You may have some good arguments if you file an application with the Trademark Office, or if you have to enforce your rights in court, whether it's based on a registration or your common law rights. It has been a pleasure talking to you about trade dress today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe so that we can continue to bring you great videos on intellectual property topics. I look forward to knowing you, and until next time, stay well.